but profound path. Focus on yourself to be consistent, not for selfishness, but for alignment, not to isolate, but to strengthen. Consistency is not perfection. Consistency is harmony between your intention and your action. And for this harmony to emerge, you must look inward, not outward. Let me share with you 5 habits. These are practices, not goals. They are disciplines to help you return to yourself and walk steadily on your path. In a world that never stops moving, where the noise of the external constantly seeks our attention, the greatest discipline begins not by adding more, but by returning to less, to the essence, to the still point within. The one who is consistent is not the one who tries to control everything, but the one who knows how to begin again each day from the right place, and that place is silence. When the sun has not yet risen and the world is still asleep, that is the sacred moment that belongs to you and only you. A moment not claimed by emails, by demands, by conversations or expectations. It is in this space that the first step toward consistency is taken, not through action, but through presence. By simply sitting in silence, you train yourself to listen to the stillness that gives birth to clarity. This habit is not dramatic, it does not shout, it does not entertain, but it transforms over time. In the Shaolin tradition, the day begins not with movement but with observation. The observation of breath, of sensation, of thoughts floating in and out like clouds in the sky. In this simple act of sitting, you begin to see yourself more clearly, not who you pretend to be, not the roles you play, but the raw, unfiltered being that exists underneath. People often think consistency begins with strict discipline of time or schedules, but it actually begins with awareness, because what you are unaware of, you cannot manage, and what you cannot manage, you will never be consistent. With silence at the beginning of the day, acts like sharpening the sword before going into battle. It ensures that every action that follows is aligned with intention. When you begin your day in silence, you are teaching yourself one of the rarest and most valuable skills in the modern world, the ability to respond rather than react in silence. You notice the flicker of impatience before it becomes anger. You see the root of distraction before it takes over your attention. You observe your desire to compare or compete and gently return to the simplicity of being. This practice also reveals something uncomfortable but powerful. It shows you what you are running from, because in silence there is no one to impress, no achievement to chase, no identity to prove. You are just there with yourself, with your breath, and in that space all the masks begin to slip away. And when that happens, you are finally able to build your life from truth, not performance. The consistency you build through silence is not about forcing yourself to act the same every day. It is about knowing yourself so well that you no longer need to waste energy pretending to be someone else. This kind of internal honesty saves your energy. It clarifies your decisions. It makes your commitments sustainable, not because they are easy, but because they are true. Every morning offers you a door. Either you walk into the day with the weight of yesterday's confusion, or you return to stillness first and choose again. The one who chooses again has power, not over others, but over themselves. They are not lost in momentum, they are guided by intention, and this is the true seed of consistency, to return to yourself again and again with presence and honesty. Silence also trains patience, and patience is the companion of all meaningful discipline. The habit of pausing before rushing, the ability to sit with discomfort, the courage to wait without needing an immediate solution. These are not signs of weakness, they are signs of mastery. The master is not the one who moves from center. It is important to understand that 5 minutes of silence is not about the length of time, it is about the quality of presence. Even one mindful breath, where you are fully here with yourself, has more power than 100 distracted actions. The body may sit still, but the real silence is the quieting of the inner commentary, the softening of resistance, the gentle return to now. Through this practice, you begin to notice the cycles of your own mind, the recurring thoughts that visit you every morning, the emotions that surface, the narratives you tell yourself. And over time, you no longer become entangled by them. They pass through like wind passing through the trees. And in this detachment, you find strength. The strength to act without being controlled by every impulse. When you begin the day with silence, you are not avoiding responsibility, you are preparing for it. You are saying, before I face the world, let me first face myself. Before I commit my energy outward, let me gather it inward, so that when I move with purpose, and when I speak with truth. And when I fail, which I will, I can begin again, not with frustration but with understanding. Focus on yourself. To be consistent means to begin each day not chasing an image of perfection, but nurturing the presence that allows you to act with integrity. Silence is not emptiness, it is the space where alignment begins, and in alignment there is flow, and in flow there is endurance, and in endurance there is mastery. Every great tree grew from stillness. Before it reached the sky, its roots went deep into the earth. Your morning silence is the rooting. It is unseen, unnoticed by the world, but it holds you firm when the winds of chaos arrive. Begin here each day, and you will not need to force consistency. It will arise from within you naturally, like breath, like rhythm, like life itself. This is where it all begins, and where you will always return. The body is not just a tool, it is the temple of your discipline, the expression of your inner state. Everything that happens within the mind eventually echoes through the body. And likewise, every movement of the body shapes the mind more than most people realize. This connection is the reason why consistency cannot live only in the mental realm. It must be grounded in physical practice, because what you do physically teaches the mind. Rhythm teaches it stability and teaches it how to stay present in each moment. Movement with purpose is different from ordinary activity. It is not just about exercise or burning energy, it is about awakening awareness in the body. Each gesture, every step, each motion is a chance to bring your attention fully into now. When the body moves with purpose, it becomes a vehicle for mindfulness, a bridge that connects thinking and being. And for the one seeking consistency, this is essential, because it is easy to think about being consistent. It is much harder to feel it in the bones, express it with every breath and every move. This is why daily physical discipline is not optional, it is the ground on which your intentions are tested every day. When you rise and dedicate yourself to movement, you're not just training muscles, you are shaping identity. You are telling yourself, I am the kind of person who shows up no matter how I feel. I move because it is my commitment, not because I am motivated. In the Shaolin tradition, every form, every stance, every repetition is infused with intention. There is no careless movement. Nothing is done just to pass the time or to appear strong. Everything has purpose. Even a simple stretch done with presence becomes a sacred act. In that way, the physical becomes spiritual, not through ritual but through repetition that is rooted in awareness. When the body begins to flow like this, it informs the mind, and the mind becomes calm, not through silence, but through synchrony. When you skip this discipline, when you let the body become lazy or disconnected, the mind soon follows. Because the body and mind are not separate, they are partners in the same dance. If you wish to be mentally clear, emotionally stable, spiritually centered, then you must take care of the physical vessel. Not out of vanity, not for display, but to honor the connection between doing and being. This is why the consistency built through movement is so powerful. It creates results that cannot be faked or borrowed. They must be earned, one day at a time. People often wonder how to stay motivated, how to not give up on their goals, but this question comes from a misunderstanding of the path. The question is not how do I stay motivated, the question is how do I move when I am not motivated? How do I act when I do not feel like it? And the answer is very simple, you act anyway. Because action builds identity. And identity fuels consistency. One push-up leads to 10, one deep breath leads to peace. One step forward leads to momentum, but none of it happens unless you begin and continue to move. There will be days when the body feels tired, when your thoughts are heavy, when doubt whispers that it is easier to rest than to rise. But these are the moments that define you, not because you must ignore your pain, but because you learn to move with it, not in resistance, but in awareness. You stretch a little softer, you walk a little slower, but you do not stop. And that is what matters. To be consistent is not to always move the same, but to always move with honesty and dedication to yourself. Through this habit, you also begin to reclaim your relationship with time. When you dedicate part of your day to physical practice, you carve out space that belongs to you, space that cannot be stolen by distraction or demands. It becomes an anchor, a constant, something that is always waiting for you, no matter how the rest of the world changes. This anchor builds stability, and with stability comes confidence, not the kind that needs to be proven, but the kind that is lived. Movement also teaches humility, because progress is not instant, results are not always visible, and strength is not always physical. Sometimes the greatest victory is showing up again after failure or disappointment or long pauses. Movement teaches patience, because it reminds you that everything is earned slowly and with respect. It teaches discipline, because it shows you that mastery is not about doing more, it is about doing what matters again and again, until it becomes part of who you are. When you move with purpose every single day, you begin to listen to your body in a deeper way. You understand its signals. You know when to push and when to rest. You no longer punish it or ignore it. You begin to treat it as an ally, not an enemy, not a tool, but a friend. And this relationship is essential, because if you are at war with your body, you will never be at peace with your life. Consistency in movement is not about intensity, it is about frequency. Even a few minutes of focused practice each day over months and years will change who you are, because repetition creates rhythm, and rhythm creates presence, and presence is the gateway to power. Not the power to dominate, but the power to stay centered in any situation. In this way, movement becomes meditation, and meditation becomes movement. The line between stillness and action disappears. You become the flow, you become the breath, and when life challenges you, which it will, you do not collapse, you do not run, you return to movement, to breath, to presence, and you continue, because that is what consistency truly is, the decision to return to your path, no matter what tries to take you away from it. So each day, begin again. Through movement, honor your body through movement, discipline your mind through movement, return to yourself and walk your path with steadiness and strength. Where your attention goes, your life flows. Your energy follows the direction of your focus, and so your outcomes are shaped by what you allow yourself to notice. This truth is simple, yet often overlooked in a world filled with noise, distractions and comparison. If you do not consciously guard your attention, it will be pulled and scattered, until you are left with only fragments of energy and a restless mind. Consistency cannot survive in fragmentation. It requires presence, and presence can only exist when attention is protected, like something sacred. Many people struggle with inconsistency not because they lack discipline or motivation, but because their attention is hijacked. They wake up and immediately hand their awareness to a screen, to messages, to opinions, and to endless content. The mind becomes reactive, chasing thoughts and feelings that are not rooted in purpose. When this happens every day, you become a stranger to your own path. You begin living someone else's idea of a life. You confuse motion with meaning and wonder why there is no peace. Guarding your attention begins the moment you wake up. It begins with the choice to give yourself to silence instead of stimulation. It begins with the courage to say, I will not begin my day by consuming, I will begin by creating space. In that space, awareness grows, and you become the one who observes instead of the one who is constantly pulled from one thought to the next. This practice is not easy, but it is essential because attention is the foundation of self-mastery. And without mastery, there can be no true consistency. As you move through your day, every interaction becomes a test of attention. When you speak to someone, are you really listening, or are you preparing your reply? When you eat, are you tasting your food or watching a screen? When you walk, do you feel the ground beneath your feet, or are you rushing toward the next moment? These small habits reveal the condition of your mind. They show you where your attention is and what it is feeding on. Just as the body becomes what it eats, the mind becomes what it pays attention to. One of the greatest dangers to consistency is comparison. When you allow your attention to dwell on the lives of others, on their progress, on their success, you begin to lose your own direction. The tree does not look to the tree beside it to decide how tall it should grow. It simply grows according to its nature and its nourishment. You too must learn to return your attention to your own soil, your own rhythm, your own way. Otherwise, your journey will be filled with doubt and hesitation, and you will never stay long enough in one place to grow roots. Comparison also breeds judgment, both of others and of yourself. It creates unnecessary mental noise that distracts you from the present moment. And when your attention is clouded by judgment, you cannot act with clarity. And when you do not act with clarity, your results become inconsistent. To guard your attention is to remove judgment, not by force, but by understanding that each person walks their own path and that the only path you must walk is your own. To protect your attention, you must become selective about what you consume, not only through your eyes and ears, but also through your thoughts. Every thought you repeat is a seed. If you constantly entertain thoughts of fear or lack or confusion, your mind will reflect those states. If you choose instead to return again and again to thoughts of purpose, of gratitude, of peace, your mind will begin to mirror that direction, and your actions will follow with more consistency and strength. Discipline is not only about doing what is hard, it is about doing what is meaningful. And you cannot know what is meaningful unless you are aware, and you cannot be aware unless your attention is present and grounded. This is why practices like meditation, breath work, mindful walking, and time in nature are not luxuries, they are necessities. They train the mind to rest in the now, and the now is the only place from which you can take true action. Each time you feel overwhelmed or lost, it is likely that your attention has wandered from the present. It has moved into what if or what was, and in doing so it has weakened your power to act. To refocus is to return to now, and this habit of returning becomes your strength, like a warrior who knows that presence is the sharpest sword. You do not fight distraction with frustration, you disarm it with awareness, and you bring your focus back again and again. Protecting your attention also means saying no to what is not aligned with your values. This includes people, conversations, environments, and habits that drain your energy. If something costs your peace, it is too expensive. The more you value your attention, the more intentional your life becomes. You will no longer tolerate what wastes your time. You will begin to move with purpose because you are no longer pulled in 100 directions. You are rooted, and from that root your actions grow strong and steady. This habit is not about closing yourself off from the world. It is about choosing how and where you engage. It is about training your awareness to flow toward what nourishes and strengthens you instead of what confuses and distracts you. In this way, your life becomes simple, not because it is easy, but because it is clear, and in clarity, consistency finds its place and begins to thrive. When you learn to guard your attention, you begin to walk through life awake. Each choice, each step, each moment becomes a deliberate movement toward your deeper truth, and you no longer live on autopilot, you live in alignment. And that is the essence of the path. Return again and again to the present. Choose again, again, to focus not on the noise but on your own direction. This is how consistency becomes natural, not a burden, not a task, but a reflection of who you are becoming each day. You protect your focus is another day. You walk your path with strength and stillness. Your words are not just sounds, they are extensions of your inner world. Every time you speak, you reveal what is happening inside, even when you try to hide behind clever language or polite answers. Your tone, your pace, your silence, they all speak, and in this way speech becomes not just communication, but reflection. Speech reveals discipline or its absence. It shows presence or distraction. It becomes a mirror for your level of consistency and self-awareness. If your goal is to become consistent and rooted on your path, then your words must be chosen with care, because every word either builds or breaks, either clarifies or confuses, either empowers or drains. And this does not only apply to what you say to others. It begins with how you speak to yourself. Most people do not even realize how often their inner language sabotages them. I can't, I never, I'm not good enough. These are not facts, they are choices, repeated over and over until they become beliefs. If you want to change your direction, you must first change your conversation. To speak with intention, you must slow down. There is power in the pause before words are released. The pause teaches you to check in with your breath, with your state, with your purpose. It gives you the space to ask, is this true? Is this kind? Is this necessary? Without this pause, speech becomes automatic, and automation often leads to regret. The person who speaks without awareness is like a warrior who swings their sword without direction. Not only do they fail to hit the target, they may also harm what they wish to protect. It is not about speaking perfectly or always saying the right thing. It is about speaking from the right place, a place of clarity and purpose. And this can only happen when the mind is grounded and the attention is steady, which is why this key follows the others naturally. Silence teaches you to listen. Movement connects you to your center. Focus trains your awareness. And now from that foundation, your speech becomes a conscious extension of your being. Consistent people speak less, but mean more. They are not in a rush to fill the silence. They do not speak to impress or defend. They speak when there is something to say, and when they speak it carries weight, because it is not a reaction, it is a response, shaped by understanding, intention, and self-control. This way of speaking does not seek to dominate, but to bring presence into the space. It transforms conversation into connection. When you speak with intention, you also create internal alignment. Your actions begin to reflect your words begin to reflect your values, and over time, this congruence builds trust, not just with others, but with yourself. You begin to believe in your own word because you no longer speak lightly or make empty promises. You say what you mean and you follow through. And this habit becomes the root of all consistency. This also includes your tone, because tone is often louder than words. A sharp tone can turn truth into attack. A gentle tone can turn correction into guidance. You must become aware not just of what you say, but how you say it. Tone is shaped by emotion, and emotion is shaped by thoughts. So the clearer your mind, the calmer your speech. And the calmer your speech, the more consistent your presence in the world. Speaking with intention also trains patience, because you learn to wait until you are truly ready to express. You learn to listen fully before replying. You learn to feel the rhythm of a conversation rather than rushing to control it. And in this space of listening, something powerful happens. You stop needing to win arguments or prove yourself. You start valuing understanding more than being right. And this shift brings you peace. It is easy to let frustration speak. It is easy to let fear speak. It is easy to react with sarcasm or judgment. But those are shortcuts. They require no skill, no discipline, to speak with clarity under pressure, to express truth without attack, to share emotion without blame. This is mastery. And mastery is what makes your presence consistent, strong, and trusted. Even when you are alone, your speech matters. The way you speak about your own efforts, your own progress, your own mistakes, all of it shapes your mental environment. If you speak with bitterness or doubt, you poison your own soil. But if you speak with courage and honesty, even when you fall, you give yourself the strength to rise again. The inner dialogue must become a space of clarity and encouragement, not false praise, but grounded truth. Speaking with intention also means knowing when not to speak. Silence itself can be a message, a very powerful one. Sometimes silence says, I hear you more than words can. Sometimes silence says, I choose peace over reaction. And in these moments you gain control, not over others, but over yourself. This control is not force, it is awareness, and awareness is always the beginning of consistency. Over time, as your speech becomes more conscious, so does your life. Because what you speak about often becomes what you focus on. What you focus on becomes what you act on. And what you act on becomes who you are. So the chain begins here, with the breath, with the thought, with the word. If you master the word, you master the moment, and moment by moment, you master your path. Consistency is not just about what you do, it is about who you are becoming. And speech is a reflection of that becoming. Every sentence is a step either toward or away from your true self. So speak less, react less, judge less, and instead express with care, with clarity, with purpose. Every day, return to your breath, return to your center, and let your words rise from there without force, without doubt. Only truth shaped by awareness and carried with intention. This is the voice of a steady path and a steady mind. Every path that leads to strength leads through stillness. Because in stillness the truth can no longer hide. It rises and meets you with honesty, and you are left with no excuses, no distractions, no one to blame, just yourself, your thoughts, your fears, your hopes, your habits, and all of these become clear when you sit still long enough to feel them move within you. Most people avoid stillness because it forces them to meet themselves, and yet this meeting is the only way to grow with consistency and peace. The modern world is fast, loud, filled with motion and noise, and it rewards those who keep moving, keep scrolling, keep responding. But this kind of movement is not progress, it is escape. When you move without pause, you are not in control of your direction. You are being pushed by restlessness, by fear of silence, by fear of what may come up when there is nothing to do and no one to impress. This is why stillness is not just a habit, it is a discipline that trains the deepest layer of your being. True consistency is not built by doing more, it is built by becoming more present. And nothing teaches presence better than stillness. When you sit in stillness, you begin to notice what you have been ignoring. You hear the stories running in your mind, the way you speak to yourself, the pressure you place on your own shoulders. And in that space, you learn to separate truth from noise and noise from wisdom. You learn to breathe with your whole body. You learn to listen. Stillness reveals patterns you didn't know were there. It shows you how your thoughts wander, how quickly your mind escapes the now, how often you chase what is outside to avoid what is inside. But the person who trains in stillness learns to return again and again to now, not by force, but through breath, not by control, but through surrender. When you can be still, your reactions soften. You become less reactive to situations, to people, to your own emotions. You gain space between stimulus and response, and in that space you find power, not the kind that dominates, but the kind that chooses with clarity. And this is the root of all consistency, the ability to choose again and again the direction of your actions, instead of being driven by mood or noise or habit. Stillness teaches you patience, because nothing blooms just because you want it to bloom. Things take time. And you only understand this truth when you sit with time and observe how slowly the breath moves, how slowly the tension releases, how slowly the mind quiets down. And in that slowness, you stop demanding instant results and begin trusting the rhythm of life. And trust is what allows you to keep going, even when the results are not yet visible. You also begin to experience yourself without labels, without roles, without performance. In stillness, you are not your job.